Now, I mean this for real this time. We are going to go talk about our next story called Count the Ways. All right, now it's time for Count the Ways. So Count the Ways is the third story in Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear Fright Into the Pit. Count the Ways is... I have a lot to say about it. But before we dive in, I want to give some content warning for the actual story itself. I will be touching on parts of this, but not all of it. So here are some trigger warnings before we get into this story. So in Count the Ways, there are many references to death, different styles of execution, and a lot of harmful self-talk. If that is not content that you would like to read or hear about, because I will be discussing it a bit, I would say either skip to the end of this video, I'll have my final thoughts on the whole story, or just skip Count the Ways in here. It's a bit of a difficult read in that way. Honestly, do whatever. I do not mind. Just take care of yourself and don't worry. It'll be okay. Now, let's go. So I have a summary and spoilers ahead. I keep glancing down. I wrote a script. I was very prepared, guys. I'm very proud. So, Count the Ways is actually a story with two stories in one. So with the past stories, it's always in one singular narrative. This one has two. There is the past Millie, the near past Millie, and the current Millie. Millie in the present is not having a good time at all. She is trapped in Funtime Freddy's stomach hatch. She is smushed in there. Funtime Freddy, who has rolled his eyes back in the skull and staring down at Millie when she's in his stomach cavity, and he's just staring down at her, and he wants to grant her wish to die. Funtime Freddy calls it a win-win situation, since he will be able to unalive someone, and Millie will finally get her wish. Millie is horrified by this concept and is terrified, understandably, and she is not doing okay. That's story one. In the past, we get past Millie. Past Millie, we start to understand why Funtime Freddy thinks that Millie wants that. We learn about Millie, and Millie is a very rude goth girl who is openly in love with her concept of death. Millie has recently had to move in with her very eclectic grandpa. Her grandpa who collects porcelain dolls and rusted down animatronics. Millie isn't handling this transition super well. The two stories do come together. As Count the Ways comes to a close, the two stories become one in a very dreadful way. The ending hurts. The ending just hurts. It just hurts. Now, here's my tea. So, as y'all know, I have called many of the main characters in Into the Pit. I have called many of the main characters and features brats. And Millie is not an exception. In fact, she's the worst out of all of them, which I feel bad saying because she is a kid and she is going through a difficult time. But she is a very hard character to read. However, I'm starting to suspect that was actually intentional by the writers. I say that because my all-time favorite character in Count the Ways actually has this to say. So this is Millie's grandpa. He is saying this from his perspective on page 193, which I think, actually real quick before we pause it, 193. Yes, I have the book in front of me. I'm 90% positive. Yes, so 193 is actually the last page of CTW. So on page 193, and I'll read it to you guys because I have it open. So Millie's grandpa refers to himself and thinks to himself this. Grandpa didn't like the word brat being used to describe Millie. She wasn't a bad kid. She was just at a difficult age. She would come around. End quote. He's not wrong. Millie has potential to be a good kid. She is at a really hard age. Being 14 is hard. You're hitting puberty, your life is changing like crazy, your hormones are all going nuts. You're usually around that time, you're changing schools. It's a big change, and it's a lot on a kid. Millie has a lot going on. Her parents aren't the most consistent with staying with her. Her grandpa is trying his best, but Millie doesn't really know how to cooperate that. But that doesn't excuse Millie, because here I wrote this down. Hi, baby. It doesn't excuse how entitled and rude she is to everyone. She is so mean to her grandpa, to her ex-best friend, to... Oh, hi. 1 second. You knocked down Duchess. This is Duchess, by the way. She's my little lady. I've been told she's a futu, or a futu. I'm pronouncing it wrong. One of my friends got me for her. Her name is Duchess. She's very precious. Okay, she's not the focus of this video, but this is Duchess. Hi, baby. Okay, where was I? Oh, yes, Millie. Her "I'm better than everyone" attitude, and she's so mean to everyone in the story. It makes it very hard to read her. Like, just very hard to read her storyline and be invested. Like, reading CTW, I was pissed. Like, I was just so angry reading about this character. But the more we got into her, the more I saw those glimpses of her being an actual good kid. She is so infuriating because she can be so mean. But she has that potential. She has that potential to be a really good kid, and deep down, I'm sure she is. She's just insecure and lonely, which is, again, hard. Like, she has moments. She has moments that make me love her. Like, she likes Victorian death jewelry, and she likes to write poetry. Initially, she only wrote poetry about death because that's what she romanticized and loved. But then she starts writing poetry about love. And she secretly wants to be a librarian. She has hopes and dreams. She is a good kid. But that's so buried under the entitlement and the rudeness. And it's hard to like her because she's so hard to mix. She's tragic in her innocence. And that's just hard. Millie romanticizes death as this stranger who will come in and save her from her boring and dull life. She doesn't understand the reality of death or how it affects the ones who you leave behind. She doesn't understand that. We get a clear outline of this when how Millie doesn't understand death at all, or the severity of death, with how Millie actually talks about one of my favorite poems, Annabel Lee. So Annabel Lee is a poem written by Edgar Allan Poe, who is one of my favorite poets and storytellers. He's a lot of fun. Annabel Lee deserves her own video altogether, and she will. Most likely next year, because this year's already kind of full with videos. But I do want to talk a bit about her. So here's a quick summary. Spoilers if you've never listened to Annabel Lee. So, quick summary. I'm not doing the story justice, by the way. The poetry is much better. 2 people fall into a love that is so strong that the heaven themselves strike down and kill the beloved's narrator, Annabel Lee. Millie reads this little petite poem. I think it's like half a page long. It's very tiny. And the only thing she takes from it is that Annabel Lee, the main character, was a beautiful dead girl. That is the only thing she sees about Annabel Lee. This is literally referenced on page 142, and I do not like this, and I have so much to say about this, and it just pisses me off for so many reasons. And it just makes me really mad, especially because... So Annabel Lee, this is gonna get its own video because I have thoughts and opinions, and I love Annabel Lee. I think that's a beautiful poem. And if we go into theory territory, there's some actual real like pieces in there that are actually really sweet and emotional. And Edgar Allan Poe, kind of a weird guy, just weird in general. So he has his own things going on. So someday I will go into and talk about Annabel Lee, and I will talk about that beautiful poem. Not in this video. Just know I am deeply hurt by Millie viewing this sweet little, very tragic poem and just sees the part about the beautiful dead girl. It just makes me really mad. And I am going to talk about it more in its own video because it deserves that. Just know Millie is not my favorite character. Also, total side note, Funtime Freddy is having way too much fun. Like, the entire chapter, like the whole present storyline where we get Funtime Freddy, he's having so much fun. He's making jokes, he's laughing, it's all very, like, puns and scary, and he's having way too much fun. He is horrifying. Every line that he's in, I'm like, I love it. I love it. I love it. He makes, like, when I hear his voice, I'm like, this sounds like what I think William Afton would actually sound like. Not the version that I portray of him in the comics, because I can't do that justice. I wish I could, but I can't. I'm not good at writing puns. So just, like, filled with puns, and it's gory and scary and creepy, but still happy. That's Funtime Freddy. And I'm like, that's my version of William Afton in these books. Oh my gosh, but okay, I gotta do my closing thoughts. Mostly because of Count the Ways, CTW, I could keep talking. I have so many ideas about this story. It will actually get its own couple of videos. Most of these stories from Into the Pit will get their own too. So we're just gonna have to wait for that. Especially Millie's grandpa. He's a I don't have a lot to say about him, but I will, because I love him, and he is, like, one of my favorite characters. Also, he's very much me as a grandpa. I really love the grandpa. But, so I love him. And Funtime Freddy needs his own video, especially, I want to talk a little bit how I think he got there, how he's connected, and some fun stories about this character, because someone just liked my Tumblr post, yay. Because Funtime Freddy he's so creepy. And I love him. I love the scary boy. I love him. I don't know where he is, but I do actually have his plushie. I love him. He was, total side note, but in Sister Location, we get to hear his voice, and I have no idea who the voice actor is, but whoever voiced Funtime Freddy in Sister Location, mwah, I love you. I love your voice, at least. I love the way they portrayed Funtime Freddy. I just love it. I love it. Okay, again, closing thoughts about CTW. I loved Millie's grandpa. I loved Funtime Freddy. There's a lot that I want to talk about. But Millie is so mean to everyone. It is painful. She is painfully 14. She completely glorifies death, and she completely misses the point to Annabelle Lee, which is a tragic love poem. She's just, she's a kid, and she's going through a really hard time, but Google is at least currently free. Look into the other versions of the poem. Oh my gosh. Plus Edgar Allan Poe. I love this man. He's one of my favorites. My puppy is literally named after him. Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. Poe. That's my boy. Also, he keeps glancing at me whenever I say his name. And I sound like a really, really bit of a broken record, and I know it. But Millie is so mean to her grandpa. And it is painful when literally he is just trying to help her. He's struggling and working on it, but he is trying to help her, and she's just, it's hard to read. It is hard to read, and it makes, y'all, I could keep talking about this, and clearly I could, and I will someday, but I want this video not to be like 4 hours long, just about me talking about Count the Ways. Count the Ways will have its own more videos, because I have so much to talk about. But thank you for listening to my rant. I must say, though, even though I have a lot of gripes with Millie, I do want to see more of her. We did have a bit of growth closer to the current end of her storyline. We got to learn more about her. And even in the past storyline, it was kind of interesting to see, without getting into too many spoilers, she has a really interesting view of her ex-best friend that actually made me understand some of my ex-friendships. And I was like, oh, it's really interesting being able to look through it and understanding how much things have been skewed, because you can baby, you are so handsome, you are so gorgeous. Sorry, Poe is like modeling right now, and I'm like, I have the most gorgeous dog, guys. He's so pretty. I need to again, Millie will get her own video. I have more to talk about. So I do want to see more of Millie though. And minor spoilers ahead, because the ending, I do admit, I googled what the ending meant, and spoilers, my lovely cupcakes, we do see Millie again, which is great. I'm a little nervous to how we meet her again, but we got some more stories to read, so we'll just have to see. So honestly, the story is a high rating because of the grandpa and Funtime Freddy. I'll give it a B-. If I could do like C plus and a half, it'd be that. All right, everybody, I think we are almost to, looks like there's one more story for us to talk about. So there's a bonus story in Into the Pit. Spoilers ahead. Also, fun fact, so I've sat down and read this story a total of 3 times. First time was just for fun. I didn't actually know this was in here. I thought it was just a section about the authors, or a sequel for a page for the next book. So I didn't touch it. The second time was an audiobook. The audiobook didn't have this section. Third time, I'm reading through, I'm making notes. Y'all can, I wrote notes in these, I highlighted things. And I flipped the page and I'm like, this was a super cool surprise. I was like, also, total side note, this is easier for me to read when it's all black and white. Significantly easier for me to read. It's harder to make notes, but this is easier for me to read. Do not know why, but fun fact. Also, going forward, I am going to quote something from this story. I guessed on the page numbers for the bonus because you can't see the page numbers. So if I'm wrong on page numbers, I'm sorry. Just know I tried to quote it from the back. I wrote my own page numbers. I hope they're right. Okay, let's talk about it. There isn't a title to this story, so I just kind of wrote it as bonus. Maybe eventually these bonus stories, I'm assuming there's more of them, they'll get their own videos, but for now, let's start with the basics. So, spoilers ahead. And summary. Detective Larson's work took complete control over his life, thus leaving him alone without his family, completely sheltered in his rundown office. His chief comes up to him and hands him a case called the Stitch Wraith. The Stitch Wraith was originally an urban legend, nothing to take seriously. But now, there's been 5 suspicious deaths, all connected to this so-called legend. What connects these urban legends, you say? Well, on page 202, this is what we read is in the file. Quote, 5 withered bodies with eyes that bleed black down the sides of their face. End quote. And Detective Larson has seen this before. Only this time, they have a lead. Okay, here is my tea. Writing in this story, like the writing style itself, is very hard-hitting in the tell, which isn't a bad thing, but it kind of made it a little tiring a little bit to read. This is just personal preference, I recognize that, but show me that the detective is divorced. Maybe he still wears his wedding ring, but it's been taken off a lot. So the outside, don't read into that. Maybe the outside is outside's all dirty and gross, but the inside is nice and shiny. Or maybe it's a family portrait and a picture's been torn out. There are ways to show this, show me. Also, Detective Larson kind of falls into the stereotype that I've seen a little bit with detectives, where he gets so work obsessed that he ends up divorced and lonely by himself. I've seen that a lot in stereotypes around detectives. I don't know how I feel about that. It's just a little eye-rolling. Also, this story reads more as a scene than an actual story. Not a bad thing. This is just my general thoughts on my tea. But I do like the scene. I love the build-up. I love the entry, the intrigue into the Stitch Wraith. I like it. Also, I love how we build up to a lovely cliffhanger. Because yes, we do not know the ending of this yet. I'm excited. So, also, my girl, my baby, Sarah is also mentioned. Sarah was our main character back in TBB, To Be Beautiful. She was the girl who got her body stolen by Eleanor, who is low-key the baby animatronic in this. Not an actual baby, but the baby animatronic. That's a whole thing. So, I'm hoping we get to see Sarah again. I have no idea how, because the last time we saw her, her body had basically turned into parts, and she's a giant puddle of parts. But I'm hoping we see her again. So maybe we'll get to see Oz and Millie too. I don't really know how, but I would really like to see our 3 main characters again. Trust me, y'all have seen the video. I have complained a lot about these guys. But I still grew attached to them. I still care about them. I'm excited. I'm also intrigued with a Stitch Wraith. I have a feeling it's either going to be Ennard or William Afton, or maybe a combo. No idea. I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm excited. I'm here for it. Stitch Wraith will have his own video down the road. Will have his? I don't know if it's a he. Stitch Wraith will have their own video down the road because currently I do not have enough information to make a video about them. So my loves, it is time for my conclusion. Hello. Into the Pit. My conclusion for this, wow. Five Nights at Freddy's, Fazbear Frights, Book 1, Into the Pit. I have so many thoughts and so many feelings about this tiny little book. This, what, like 200 something page book? Simply put, I would call this book the Book of Brats. Because every single character is a brat. It's kind of hard to read, but once you dive in, you're gonna really start liking those characters. At least I did. Even if the brats can be very annoying and the writing style is very exposition heavy, I still like this book. I'm gonna go back to it. And I have a lot of things to say about it too, so don't worry, we're not done with Into the Pit yet. Would I recommend it? Maybe. It kind of depends on the person who I'm talking to. I wouldn't just recommend it to anybody. If somebody, a FNAF fan, wanted more FNAF lore and liked unreliable narrators, I totally recommend it. Overall, I'd give this story a C+ to a B-. If I could find, I'll give it a C+. It kind of depends on how nice I'm feeling, but right now I'll give it a C+. Not a bad book. I really liked it. There's a lot of fun things in here, but there's so many parts of the story that kick me out of it that makes it really hard for me to stay engaged. So, C+, C- almost, honestly. But reading Into the Pit gave me so many story ideas. And there's so many things that I want to keep talking about. We still need to talk about Eleanor and her implications. I still need to talk about this rabbit and how I think his murder ritual is being explored in this. Ain't his murder ritual. The ritual that he does to commit to die, I think. And Millie. I am not done with that character yet. Not done with her. I have much more to say, but I don't want this video to be 4 hours long. So there's going to be a bunch of mini videos coming out with this, all books with tea, based on Into the Pit. Well, this story and the individual stories that come along with it. So we're going to spend a bit more time with this, do a bit more deep dive, and then, once we have thoroughly devoured this book, we'll go to the next one. All right, my ending thoughts. Whoa, my goodness. What a journey. This took a lot of work. Oh my goodness. But it was so much fun. I had so much fun with this. I really want to get back. There will be more of these, but I'm gonna, you guys aren't really gonna see this video for a while. Hi, baby love bug, good boy. I will of course post this, guys, but post my lovely cupcakes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do, cupcakes is what I want to call you guys, and a lot of you more gender neutral. That's important. But we will be getting more of these. I'm gonna figure out the schedule. I want a couple of videos ready before I start posting it, just so that way you guys have consistent content. So don't worry, we have more. What did you guys think about Fazbear Frights' first story, Into the Pit? I know this one's kind of old in the Five Nights at Freddy's lore now. I think this book came out in like when did you come out? In 2020. Oh. It's not, is that really? That doesn't feel that long ago. Huh. Well, it feels long. What did you guys think of this story? Comment down below. And also, what do you guys want to focus on and concept deep dive in these? I have a whole list for each story. And trust me, we're gonna get more into this. And even when we're done with these videos, we're not gonna be fully done yet. Because who is the Stitch Rave? And apparently we're gonna see these characters again. So, we have much more to discuss, my lovely cupcakes. So you just have to stay tuned, and don't worry, I'll make a schedule so that way you guys will be able to watch Books of Tea episodes. Thank you, my loves. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this lovely journey. It was a lot of work, but a lot of fun. I will see you next time on our lovely show. Sorry. Bye.